Hello, this is Dr. Brigandi, and I am the lead instructor for Special Education in a Contemporary Society, SPED 404. And if you're watching this video, that means that you are enrolled in the honors section of SPED 404. And in this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the expectations for your honors project. This may be a bit different from what you're used to in other classes. This your project is going to be grounded in an evidence-based gifted education practice. It's Renzulli's enrichment triad model. And the enrichment triad model has three types of enrichment. So it's type 1, type 2, and type 3. So type 1 enrichment is meant to help you identify projects that are personally meaningful for you. So all of you are going to be doing a project individualized based on something that is meaningful for you personally. I'm going to get more into that next. Type 2 enrichment means that you're going to have some rigorous methodologies. That means that we're not going to have fluffy projects, something that you just make up in 5 minutes. This is going to involve interviewing people, researching, maybe doing observations in schools. You're going to be thinking critically and creatively, and you're going to be communicating your findings. So you're going to be doing that either visually in writing or using mass media. You're going to create something. That's the type 3 part of this for an authentic audience. So you can build a library for your future students. You can make a video to teach people what you've learned. You can give a presentation. We're going to get more into that as we go through. Let's start with finding a meaningful project. So I do have an entire video devoted to helping you find something that's meaningful for you personally, but let's define what meaningful means first. If something is meaningful to you, that means it's you find it interesting. You would do it in your free time regardless because you enjoy doing it and you find whatever you're doing interesting. It could also be something that's tied to your identity. Like, for example, let's say you're an athlete and so you want to become a physical therapist to work with other athletes to help them to be strong and avoid injury. That's something that you may find interesting, but it's also something that could be based on your sense of identity as someone who's physically fit, as someone who is an athlete. A third category of meaningfulness could be benefits, right? Let's say that you have to take a class and you don't necessarily find it interesting or meaningful, but you need to pass it because you're going to get a degree that's going to help you to get the job you want in the future. So you may need to learn a skill, or you may need to have an experience that will be beneficial to you. Either now, it could help you immediately, or it could help you in the future. Again, there's a whole video devoted to meaningfulness. The second part, type 2 enrichment, means you're going to have some sort of methodologies that make the project rigorous, to show that you've done some work. And these are the general types of type 2 methodologies that you're going to use. You're going to learn to think critically and creatively. You're going to read, you're going to write, you're going to create. Common type twos, the ones that I found that students most commonly use in special education for a contemporary society would be interviewing many people, interview professionals in the field. They interview students who have disabilities to learn more about their day. You could also observe in classrooms. You could volunteer at Special Olympics or stepping stones to see what these types of interventions look like in real time. You can use your critical thinking skills. So you're going to research, access, and analyze resources. You can compare and contrast. I'm going to be showing you a compare and contrast done by a student who is comparing and contrasting two different special education fields. You're going to make decisions based on the information that you have, and you're going to communicate what you've learned to others who are interested. And you're also going to cite your sources using APA style, and that is a separate video. I'm going to give you some examples of projects now. I think this will help spark some ideas in you, or at least clarify what it is that I'm expecting. So, this is a student, and her product was a book for elementary school teachers. She wrote a book with a protagonist who was a elementary school female with autism, and she called it the Rainbow Brain. And it was an amazing example of a type 3 enrichment project because it was based on something she found interesting. She wanted to learn more about children who had autism, what it looks like in a classroom, challenges they encounter, and best yet, interventions that she as a future teacher could implement with her students to help them to be more successful in the classroom. And this product was for a real world audience because it's a book for elementary school students to help them better understand what a day in the life of somebody who is on the spectrum looks like. So she developed how-to skills. So it was interesting to her and meaningful for her. But additionally, she used type 2 skills, right? She interviewed a teacher and asked her, can you think of a student who is on the autism spectrum, describe some challenges that they had, and describe some interventions that you used to help that be better? She observed in the classroom, she took notes, she outlined, she organized the information, she wrote scenarios. And she used those scenarios to inform her book, and it was based on research. She looked up, how autism presents and read articles on it. So you can see this was a really great product. Some other ideas that students did besides a book that was submitted for publication. Some people make videos for YouTube. There was one student who was a speech and language pathologist who did research on articulation disorders and created a video on the way those could present and talked about the different interventions to help people overcome those articulation disorders. One person did the impact and importance of Special Olympics. This one was great because the student interviewed students involved in the Special Olympics, parents of the students, organizers of the event, and she synthesized all of those perspectives to help educate others on ways that this intervention was impactful for the community. One person was a music major and they chose to research music therapy. They created a presentation and they arranged to give that presentation at their former high school to other music students. Posters are also, you could create something digitally. There was one student who was interested in using yoga as an intervention for young children. She interviewed a teacher who used yoga to ask her what it was she thought was beneficial about it based on her observations. So that's not research. We call that anecdotal. And then she went into the class and she observed what she saw, she documented it, and she compared what she saw with research on yoga. And then she created a poster to inform others. So one person did a PowerPoint with a voiceover and created a compare and contrast in a decision-making grid. She was interested in learning whether she wanted to become a occupational therapist or a physician's assistant. So she interviewed a physician's assistant and an occupational therapist. She asked them questions like describe your quality of life, describe your salary. If you had to make this decision over again, would you choose this same career? And then she created a compare and contrast and a decision-making grid to inform her decision, and I'm going to show those to you in a minute. One person was interested in gifted education, and I do want you to know that gifted is a category of special education, so you are free to do a project on gifted education. One of the project problems with young students who are advanced readers is there's like if you're 7 and you're reading a book that's on a high school level, most of the time, if that's at a high reading level, it's going to have content that might not be appropriate for a student of that age. So finding advanced reading materials for young children can often be difficult. So this was a project that was beneficial for her. She created a library of books that were at an advanced level, but with appropriate content for young gifted readers. This is the compare and contrast that I told you about. So this is the student who was considering being an occupational therapist or a physician's assistant. Like I said, she did interviews with an occupational therapist and a physician's assistant. She did research, and then she compared ways that they were the same with ways that they were different with regard to what she would be doing. Would she have interactions with patients, where she would be working, what kind of education she needed, um, where they're working, how much money she was going to make. That was a big one. And job growth. Were there going to be jobs in this area? So if she went through all the trouble of getting the education and the credentials she needed, was she going to be able to find a job? She made her conclusions, and based on what she learned, she created a decision-making grid. And there's actually templates for the compare and contrast and the decision-making grid in your eCampus shell. So you can do this based on what she learned. She ultimately decided that she was going to pursue becoming an occupational therapist. So this was a project that was meaningful to her because it was beneficial. It was based on her identity. What was her profession going to be? And it was going to benefit her in the future by helping inform her decision now instead of later. So you also are going to create the project for a real world audience. So you're not going to just do some research, look up Wikipedia, write a 3-page paper, and turn it in for me to read. That is not what these projects are about. So these projects are going to be to raise public awareness. You're going to create a blog or a website, or you're going to give a presentation, or you're going to create some sort of, put the book out for presentation, talk to local school board agencies. Those are your audiences. So, in summary, you're going to have a good idea based on something that is meaningful to you, something that you're interested. What's something that you want to spend time on, but you don't have time to because you're always in school? Think of what that thing is. Something that you love doing. Do you love going out and talking to people? Do you want to interview a former coach? Do you want to interview athletes that are at an elite level? Do you want to interview your cousin who has a learning disability, or your aunt who's had to advocate and find out like what an IEP looks like, right? So there are so many good ideas out there. So, but it has to be meaningful to you. The students who have tried to just not do projects that are meaningful, but to do something quick and easy, do not benefit from this process. They don't have fun and they don't really enjoy it. The students who pick something that they really want to do and are interested in do enjoy it, and it is meaningful for them. And, in hindsight, you're going to learn some new skills. So you're going to compare, you're going to contrast, you're going to research, you're going to think critically, you're going to think creatively, you're going to communicate, and you're going to create something for an audience. You're going to build a library, write a lesson plan, make a video, learn sign language, and teach someone else to do it. So it's really no limit to the ideas that you can pursue on this. But it does need to be meaningful. It does need to have some rigor, and you do need to create something. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you this semester.